If you don't have a 4090 or 4080, like most of us, then don't even worry about Cyberpunk, okay? Put it aside. Don't buy it for now because it's a mess. A mess, a mess, a mess. Welcome to PC Gaming Tech Summary. I'm your host, Gamer, and if you wanted to try out DLSS 3.5 on your RTX GPU, well, forget it. Forget it. It's not going to happen. Unless you want 25 frames per second. What's that about? Obviously, these changes and updates to Cyberpunk 2077 2.0 are not complete, are not optimized, is a big mess. I had about 8 crashes, and that's just from going through the menus, coming back out of the menus, running the benchmark, not even playing the game. So if I can't move in and out of the menus without it crashing, what's the point? There is no point. They need to fix this. Yes, fix it. Now, why can't you run 3.5 DLSS? Well, they thought that, okay, we're going to turn on path tracing, and the only way that you can use DLSS 3.5 is to have path tracing going, activated, selected. Well, as soon as you do that, if you've got a normal 3060 12 gigabyte, well, hello, 25 frames per second, forget it. Why did they do that? I don't know. Obviously, it's not ready. I'll tell you what to do, or what you can do. I'll show you the possibilities of the 3060 12 gigabyte. And I've got the 12700K Intel i7 CPU. Right. Now they keep talking about, oh, we're going to use all your cores, all your CPU cores. You better have proper cooling on your CPU. Did I see a difference? No. And I was looking at the percent usage of each thread. Did it massively go up? Are they massively using the CPU? No. Did I see somewhere where I could select, oh, use CPU, boost, 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 use my CPU? Nah. Not gonna happen. I don't know. I think I'll go back to playing around with Starfield, all right, instead of Cyberpunk, because this is just ridiculous. Now, if you want 60 frames per second, if you want close to 100 frames per second, I can get that with Cyberpunk, okay? And I'll show you how. Okay, so when you record game video from your computer using the NVIDIA GeForce software, basically uses 10% of your FPS, so you lose 10% of your frames per second, which is pretty ridiculous. Now, why can't they use the integrated graphics? Okay, the integrated graphics on your CPU if you've got it, anyways. Now, there is an anomaly. Beer bottles are flashing white flashes of light. Now, I went back and looked at footage before Cyberpunk 2.0 and the new NVIDIA drivers. So this has both new NVIDIA drivers and Cyberpunk. So you can see the flash there on the right where the arrow's pointing. That did not happen before. And this is without ray tracing being on, okay? It happens if you have ray tracing on or off, the same annoying thing happens. So I just thought I'd point that out. Now we're running at quarter speed, so 25% of normal speed, so that you can do a comparison of, on the left, using the lower settings, and I'll show you what those are. And on the right is Ultra, and basically very close to the preset of Ultra on the right, but with ray tracing not turned on. Now the video footage is not as bright or colorful as when you're playing the game. Like on my monitor, it just looks fantastic. It's just when I go and do this process, but still, low left, ultra right, and we can have a look. What is the difference? What are we seeing is the difference between the two? Tattoo on his arm. Low left is all smudged, you can't see it at all. And on the right, you can see a bit more detail of the tattoo. Big deal. When you're playing the game and it's running fast, you're not going to notice certain things, Spot the difference. Spot the difference. You're looking at FPS. Like I said, on the left, you need to add around 10 FPS to that number. On the right, you need to add 5. Okay, and I'm running at 80% power on the 3060 12 gigabyte. Why am I running 80% power? Well, basically, the temperature drops tremendously when you do that. So if you've got a good 3060 with 3 fans and it's got great cooling on it, you could run it at 100% or higher perhaps, and get that 60 frames per second. And I'll show you the settings that I used. The settings are slightly different than the preset. In fact, some of the settings are even lower than the low preset, and some of them are higher. So I did a bit of tweaking. Let's put it that way. I know many people will have a 4K TV that they want to try Cyberpunk out on, and that TV probably only has a maximum of 60 hertz or 60 frames per second. So that's why I'm mentioning these settings, because unless you've got a G-Sync monitor or FreeSync VRR, well, it's just going to be at 60 frames per second or 60 hertz max when you're playing. And I'm using now a 120 hertz TV that is a great gaming monitor as well. It is the LG C2. It's got both FreeSync and G-Sync, and the VRR, variable refresh rate technologies, and it works with an Xbox or a PlayStation as well. If you plug it in, then the monitor actually knows that you've plugged that in. So now, as we take a look at the end of the benchmark video, there's a section that shows the side of a building, and it's rather far away, and you can see a clear difference between the textures between the two. But if we're just looking at if I'm just looking at these palm trees, and I zoom in, I'm not seeing much difference at all between the two. So at 55 frames per second, I used the ultra settings in Cyberpunk. 4K, always running at 4K. Selecting the ultra settings and change DLSs to ultra performance. Now this is showing the CPU was underclocked to 4.6 gigahertz, and the percent usage on the cores looks like it's averaging around 50%, just under. And the temperatures are fine. 58C is a maximum temperature, and was using 106 watts maximum. And this is the GPU stats, max temp at 65, hotspot 79 max, and we used 136 watts, which is what you tend to do when you run 80% power on the GPU, which is what I did. And this just brings the temps down to an acceptable level in my eyes. I don't want to wear out the video card because this is the second EVGA 3060 that I've had. The first one was sent in before a year was up because the high temps going way too high. I did overclock the snot out of that GPU, and I heard of a problem with the thermal paste on that unit. So I sent it in to get the thermal paste replaced, and they sent me a whole new card, which is what I have now, and I can't overclock it as high. And it's out of warranty, obviously, and just want to use it as long as I can. Okay, so that is showing the ultra settings and basically going back and changing DLSS to ultra performance. Now, let's go to the lower settings. Similar thing, we're using 14 gigabytes of system memory, 4.6 gigahertz on the performance cores. And here we're averaging around 61% or something usage on the cores, running at the lower settings. Okay, and the temps are fine again. We got a max of 61. Okay, the max temp, 65 on the GPU and 80 on the hotspot. So I like to keep it, say, less than 83 degrees on the hotspot if I can. I've always used resizable bar. That's always activated. And so a few of these settings so I've turned everything off there. So I don't like the film grain and lens flare, motion blur, depth of field. I just have left the chromatic aberration on. I've turned on contact shadows and improved facial lighting geometry. And I actually, from the lower settings, I increased the anisotropy to 16. And what I like to do is, for most all shadows, have them on the lowest settings. Now I've raised the subsurface scattering quality to medium. I didn't find it affecting the FPS much. Also turned off volumetric cloud quality. And the level of detail I have increased to high as well. And crowd density on high is fine. Ray tracing off. Okay, so this is just going through the NVIDIA control panel settings. I did do a fresh install with the new drivers, and I'll put a link in the description below for a website where I use the settings as a base, and then a few of them I'll alter to where I want them, such as the max frame rate here, background as an example. Also, I do have G-Sync on the monitor, so make sure that's on. I've also had the shader cache size to 10 gigabytes, just because I have room for it, and I think having 100 gigabytes would be a bit overkill. Of course, you click apply in the bottom right corner to make sure that your settings have been applied, and after you're all done, you want to actually do a restart of your computer. So 120 hertz monitor is what I have, 4K. I'm going to use the NVIDIA color settings. I've read that if you set that to 12, but you don't have that capability on your monitor, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't hurt anything to have it up at 12, as far as I know. Also, here with the digital vibrance, the default is 50, so you can increase that to get more color on your screen. I felt 80% was too high for my screen, so I've got it at 65. So I've gone ahead and selected it for windowed and full screen mode, the G-Sync. Just use the NVIDIA settings here. And advanced, make sure that's on full. A few newer settings here. Clicking apply, yes, and then restarting the computer. Well, what do you think? You know what to do. Comment, thumbs up, whatever you like. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this. I'm going to do another AI video. It's becoming very difficult to make it entertaining and funny and whatnot. But I'll go in a bit more about what all this AI demo is about, why it was created, in a bit more detail, okay? I think it's about time we take the veil of secrecy off and we get a deep dive inside AI. Thanks for joining us here on PC Gaming Tech Summary, and don't forget, you'll be seeing me in the next video.